Welcome to Rising Woman Leaders. I'm your host, Meredith Ram, and I believe the time has come for women to share their gifts, their voice, and their stories. I love seeing women spiritually and financially empowered, thriving in their life's work, and doing what they love every day. I've gathered a community of women living their dreams to tell us their stories and inspire us to step into more courage, self-love, and feminine leadership. If you like this podcast, follow me on Instagram at Rising Woman Leaders and sign up for email updates at risingwomanleaders.com. Now get cozy with a journal and a cup of tea. I hope you enjoy today's show. The Rising Woman Leaders Priestess Initiation Program is now open for enrollment and spaces are already filling up. This is a feminine leadership initiation, a high priestess sisterhood, and woman circle facilitator training program. It's 10 months long, primarily held online, but does include a 4-day closing retreat in Sonoma County, California. Join us on a path of devotion, beauty, and service as we go through a series of initiation gateways to claim your role as a priestess. We'll join together to reveal a deeper meaning of existence and anchor into our living as an embodiment of love to serve our planet and future generations. We'll be exploring themes of femininity, devotion, wildness, compassion, boundaries, prosperity, service, love, vision, and leadership. Some highlights of the course curriculum includes having 7 private healing sessions with me, where we can look at womb healing, leadership skills, how to step more fully into your dreams, your goals through mentorship. We'll have group calls every month and training modules where we'll explore energetic clearing, the wheel of the year, astrological foundations, womb healing, forgiveness, stepping into the beauty way, creating a temple of your body, your home, fertility, sensuality, love, intimacy, creating a daily sadhana practice, deepening your connection with the dream world, the power of prayer, healing your relationship to money, opening up to receive more deeply, feminine abundance and magnetism. We'll be stepping into the themes of sacred mission and activating your voice, refining your contribution in the world, as well as learning how to facilitate women's circles. We'll have time for exploring release and renewal, creativity, stepping into your soul essence, and writing your vows to claim your role as a priestess. One more note for you is that there's still space in the Wild Heart Women's Retreat on the Big Island of Hawaii this April 17th to 22nd. There are just a couple spots remaining, and if you feel the heart call at all, would love to connect more with you. Just go to risingwomanleaders.com/retreat for more info. And if you're interested in the Rising Woman Leaders Priestess Initiation, all the details are up at risingwomanleaders.com. More info on our website. I hope you enjoy today's show. I'm here today with Alexxa Latta, who helps people access their sensuality, come alive through the senses, activate passion, healing, and connection to themselves and their partners. She is an intimacy, self-love, and relationship coach, helping women and couples clear sexual blocks, explore freedom in expressing their sensuality, and discovering beautiful, deep self-love. She's helping to revolutionize the way women see and relate to their bodies and their sexuality, and also helping couples to reignite love, desire, and passion for one another. Thanks for being here, Alexxa.
Yay! Thank you, Meredith. So happy to be here with you.
Yeah. So I think where I'd love to just dive in and start is just how did you start doing this work and how did you start sharing this with others? I think it's not necessarily a path that, we're growing up, oh, I think I want to be a love and sex coach, So I'm very curious how your path ended you up here.
Yes, I think that is a perfect place to start because absolutely not. I never thought this would be my life. I grew up in a religious family, and I was interested in sex and had boyfriends and had different encounters with boyfriends when I was younger. And because of my religious upbringing, it was always something I felt subconsciously and consciously very shameful of, being sexual before marriage. And I also experienced some sexual assault when I was a teenager. And between having that religious upbringing and experiencing that shame from my sexuality and the assault, I really shut down sexually. And I thought that I was just not a sexual person. That was the message that I got from some of my elders, was like, women aren't sexual, or it's not normal for women to be sexual. Sex is for the man. And so I just thought that was who I was. I wasn't a sexual person. I saw my friends having these relationships, and I would sort of like pretend to like sex, but really what was going on was sex repulsed me, and I felt numb. I wanted to like it, but I felt zero sensation internally, externally. I felt ashamed whenever I was having sex or being intimate with someone. And it really hit me in this relationship that I'm in, because I'm so in love with my partner. And that was something that, as I got older, I realized I don't need to feel shameful for this, but I do. Like, this religious kind of and trauma and wounding is still inside of me. And I want to move past that. I want to experience this beauty and this connection with my partner. So I went on a really deep sexual healing journey, and I uncovered all of this. And I didn't even realize that like the religion was affecting me so much, and that that's a big reason why I was numb and shut down, just from my upbringing and that shame and, my story. So when I started realizing that, I started realizing how to work on it. And I discovered the jade egg and crystal pleasure wands, and my partner and I started doing like sacred sexual healing practices. And I started talking to people about it. I was so ashamed before that I didn't talk to my friends about feeling shut down or feeling numb or being, not being able to have an orgasm without a vibrator. I felt broken and so ashamed of that. So once I went on this journey, I started talking to people about it. And the more I started talking to people about it, I realized I wasn't the only one, which is funny how that happens, with our pain and our traumas. We realize we're not alone in it. And so I started talking to people more and more and more and more, and even some of my family members who are still very religious, and realize that it's such a common thing for women to have some story that is affecting them and their sensation and their pleasure and their orgasm and their connection to themselves and their partner. Like, I don't know if I've met a woman who doesn't deal with it on some level. So being that I felt so broken and so alone in it and so ashamed, I realized this is the work that I have to do. And I always knew there was something, and I realized this is it. This is this is the message that I need to bring women together in, and let people know that they're not alone and that they're not broken, and that they can have so much pleasure and love and beauty in their lives and sexuality. So that's my story.
Yeah. That's really a thread I see in a lot of the women I interview, is to have some kind of great challenge or a deep wound that they've faced in their life, and to be like, okay, this is my work and this is the thing that I'm here for, to overcome and to even be a teacher in. And that's so vulnerable, like our deepest shame and our deepest wound, to have the courage to step out and to start talking about it is really honorable and a big journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you be open to sharing just what religion you were raised in?
Yeah. My dad's side of the family is evangelist Christian, and my mom's side is Mormon. And my parents actually we went to church when I was younger, but we weren't raised in like a super religious family, but I was very close with my cousins and my aunts and my uncles. And so I didn't even realize how big of an effect it had on me, because I always was like, oh, but my parents didn't enforce it. But it was in my subconscious, that really strong evangelist Christian and Mormon. That's like, you're really not supposed to have sex before marriage. So it was just in me, and I didn't even realize it.
Wow. Yeah. Do they know the work you're doing now?
Yes, which has been one of the, if not the absolute scariest thing that I have ever gone through.
Yeah.
I started like coming out of the closet about it over a year ago now. Before, it was just kind of like this secret that I was doing, and I would do workshops, but it wasn't something I talked about. And then I started talking about it on social media, and a lot of my family followed me on it. And I remember the first day that I posted something about it, about the work I'm doing, and I saw that some of my family members had watched my story, and I was like, I felt like a part of me was dying. Like, I was so afraid. And then a couple of them reached out to me, and we've actually worked together. And
wow,
it was just such confirmation. And some of them haven't supported me, and that's been really difficult, really, really difficult. Some of them have actually, kind of removed me from their lives, and that's really hard. But I think that both the people, the family members who have reached out to me and wanted to work with me, and the ones who haven't, I think it's all confirmation that this work is needed,
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I know a lot of women struggle with, and something that sounds like you had challenge with too, is reaching orgasm. And I wonder if you could just speak to that. And, for any women out there who've like, I've never had an orgasm during intercourse or with a partner, and just why that is and what we can, do about that.
Yes, it is so common. So if anyone out there is listening and is having difficulty having an orgasm with or without a partner, like the number one thing that I want people to know is that you're not broken, and how normal it is, and it's okay. And it's possible to get past that, and you will get past that if it's something you want. I think that for women, I know that for women, our minds, our hearts, our voices are so connected to our sexuality. And if there is any kind of story, like from childhood, any shame story, any memories, any traumas or wounds that haven't been processed and worked through, that can create numbness internally. That can create this fear of letting go. And that's kind of the work of connecting spirituality and sexuality, because there's this complete surrender to the divine really that has to happen to have these deeper internal orgasms, like the cervical orgasm, the Gspot orgasm. And not only is it a mental and spiritual healing, it's physical also. So we literally create, it's called like an armor internally around our Gspot, around even our clitoris or our cervix. If we've had sex with people that we weren't ready to have sex with, or we didn't fully want to have sex with, we didn't feel comfortable saying no. We, even in relationships, sometimes we have sex if we feel pressured to, or we feel bad saying no. So all of these no's, or this pain, or having sex when we don't want to, that creates an armor internally. And to work through that armor, first it's clearing the mental, the spiritual, the emotional blocks, and then it's clearing the physical blocks. I started personally with a yoni egg, and I had so much healing with the yoni egg. I like to explain it like this. If you think about how people hold stress in their shoulders or their neck, like, oh, it's a stressful day at work and my shoulders are tight. And then you start to massage the neck, and maybe you even cry because you're like, oh, finally, I can release that tension. I can release that pain. And then you feel the stress release and you feel your shoulders release. The same exact thing is happening internally around our Gspot, around our cervix, or in our vaginal walls and our clitoris. So when we massage them with a yoni egg or a crystal pleasure wand or a glass pleasure wand, we're allowing that tension, that armor, that emotion to release, and really making it like a sacred ceremony in doing this, because it can bring up a lot of emotion. It can bring up a lot of memory and pain. So lighting candles, saying a prayer, and doing this can really help to release those walls and release the tension and awaken internal sensation.
Beautiful. And so once we begin to loosen those muscles, the idea is that just we'll be more open, more willing. It'll be more easeful to.
Yeah, that, and, bringing breath, bringing blood flow, bringing attention, making a mind-body connection. This is really important. Say you're working on de-armoring and bringing sensation and healing to your cervix. You're connecting with your mind and your body, your breath, you're bringing blood flow, you're bringing attention, you're telling your mind that this is an important part of your body that you want to be able to feel. Because so many of us, I know I had no idea that my cervix could be orgasmic. I didn't know anything about myself internally. And so how is my brain really supposed to know that if I wasn't telling it this is an important part of my body that can be filled with pleasure and filled with orgasm? So yeah, making that connection.
I'm curious, when you started doing these practices, about how much time passed before you started to really see shifts?
Yeah, I instantly started to love myself. I had struggled with eating disorders for almost, I think, 7 years, on and off, really bad eating disorders, hating my body, just very disconnected from my body. And right when I started my practice with the yoni egg and actually practicing with it, at first I would just put it in and not really know what I was doing. But when I actually started practicing with it and touching my body and looking at myself in the mirror and even dancing or just looking at myself in a different way, I started to love myself finally for the first time in my entire life. So that was pretty instant. And as far as awakening pleasure, I'd say it took a good 4 or 5 months. And it took a lot of tears, because when I was massaging internally, that's when I had these realizations that that's where my numbness and pain came from. I didn't realize it until I was massaging my Gspot and just like crying. They say that the Gspot holds our emotions. That's why we have squirting orgasms. It's like we're crying out of our yoni. So that took, probably 4 or 5 months for that to happen.
Wow. Can you tell us a little about just what is the G-spot orgasm and the cervical orgasm? And most people just know about the clitoral.
Yes. So the G-spot is anywhere from like 1 to 4 inches. It's more of like an area. It can be even about 4 inches or so inside of the vagina towards the wall of where the bladder is. So the anterior wall, that could be wrong.
The front side.
Anterior wall. Yeah. And that orgasm is, I think in Tantra, it is known to be the keeper of our emotions, the keeper of our memories, our traumas. And a G-spot orgasm is not like a clitoral orgasm whatsoever. So a lot of women actually miss a G-spot orgasm. It's more like this wave of energy. And I've even heard it be described, and I totally resonate with this description, of being like you're giving birth to an orgasm, like you're contracting. It's like this downward, like energetic, emotional release of giving birth to your own orgasm. And then the cervical orgasm is connected. The cervix is connected to the vagus nerve, and in Taoism, it's connected to the heart. So in order to have a cervical orgasm, your heart needs to be really open. You need to be really trusting, whether it's with yourself or with a partner. Like nothing, I've found that if there's anything unsaid between myself or my partner and myself that's heavy on my heart, I can't access my cervix whatsoever. But once your heart is open and you're feeling softened and safe, the cervical orgasm is otherworldly. It actually releases DMT in your brain. So we release DMT in our brains at birth and at death and during cervical orgasm and when we dream. So it's like this psychedelic, super spiritual experience. It's like suddenly your energy is filling the entire room and you're feeling this wave of pleasure all throughout your stomach and your brain and your entire body. It's like, the most amazing thing I've ever experienced, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
And if a woman is wanting to start to experience that, would you recommend like a yoni wand, or how did you first experience it?
I would absolutely recommend an egg first and doing practices with the egg and the cervix. So if you push the egg up towards your cervix and actually leave your finger in there, you can start to create the mind-body connection. First, realizing where your cervix is. Sometimes it sits to the side, it moves down and up throughout your cycle. The mucus or the discharge changes throughout the cycle. So getting to know, like building that relationship with your cervix first. But then once the egg is in, keeping the fingers there and starting to just engage the muscles around the cervix. And that is going to help to start de-armoring it and start building a connection. And as you're breathing in to your cervix, breathing into your heart and your cervix at the same time, like almost seeing this line of electricity or energy flowing between the cervix and the heart as you're squeezing the muscles around the cervix. I'd say that's step number 1. And just being so quiet in your mind and noticing every teeny teeny tiny sensation that comes up. Maybe it's numbness, maybe it's pain. Just really tuning in with every little sensation, because I think that's why so many of us miss internal orgasm, is because we're expecting it to be like a clitoral orgasm. And when it's not, we're like, we get frustrated, we get in our minds, and that takes all pleasure away. So just tuning in with the tiniest sensation, it's what's going to help make those sensations bigger and bigger and bigger. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Great. Cool. Any other practices that you recommend trying?
Yes. Once you've experimented with the egg, and there are tons of different practices that you can do with the egg, rather than just wearing it around and not doing anything. There's actually a ton of practices you can do with it. I definitely recommend getting a wand, a pleasure wand. So either a glass wand or a crystal wand, and really creating like a ritual and a ceremony with pleasure, with pleasuring yourself. Like taking a bath, having like a sensual shower, sensual massage, dancing in front of the mirror, really accessing like your own unique turn on. Everyone's turned on in a different way. And it's so, so, so important to realize the ways that we can turn ourselves on. And then the more we turn ourselves on, the more sacred and the more profound our self-pleasure practice is going to be with that wand or with that egg or with our own hands, you know. I think that that's just one of the most important things we can do as women, is learn how to turn ourselves on, because a lot of times we expect our partners to do that, and we can get so frustrated, like, oh, he's not touching me right, or he's not pleasing me. But really it's our own responsibility. And that's a huge, I just went off track a little bit, sorry, but I just feel called to say that this is such a huge thing that we need to learn as women, is that that's our gift to ourselves and to our sexual relationships, is to learn what our bodies want. Because we're all so different. We're all so different. And we can't expect someone to know that if we don't know how to teach them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that idea of knowing how to turn ourselves on, that I feel like that could be really relevant in relationships that have been longer. And
girl.
Yeah. Could you talk about that, like longer term relationships and just desire and libido, and how to keep things juicy?
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's so important. And I'm in a long-term relationship, and I've been in actually a few long-term relationships, and you know, it's all hot and sexy at the beginning, and then a couple of years go by, and that kind of like sexy momentum is just naturally lost. It's just the way our hormones work. We can't even help it. But there are things that we can do about it. And especially for women, our hormones change quicker than men's. So our desire for our if we have a male partner, actually goes away much quicker than theirs does. So we have to nurture our turn on. Like, it is the number one most important thing I think that we can do in long-term relationships. It's making sure you have time to yourself, time to take a sensual bath, time to have a sexy date with yourself, or a date with your girlfriends that just make you feel like yourself, and finding the things that turn you on. So that, have you read The Queen's Code?
Oh, I haven't.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Because I just read it, and it explains this idea so perfectly. It explains it as the sexy tank, and how we have to fill up our sexy tank, or else we're never going to want sex. So finding those things that fill up our sexy tank. And for me, that's dancing, and it's like self-massage, it's yoni egg practice, and it's taking a bath. And that's me time alone. And if I'm not filling up my sexy tank, I don't want to have sex. Like, I'm just not interested, because we're giving as women so much. We're always giving and catering to other people and working, and we have to have that time to just like fill it up, Yeah. I highly recommend The Queen's Code. It is the best book I've ever read.
Yes, so important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the other thing, to make sure that you're nurturing your sexuality, your sexy tank. And also, there have actually been studies done that if there are things on your heart or on your mind, and this goes for men and women, that you're not able to express to your partner, your sex drive instantly goes down. So if there's anything that is potentially holding your body back from being able to fully let go, then you're not going to want to have sex. So having a really healthy communication is actually so important. And I know that communication it has been one of the most difficult things in my own relationship. We're not necessarily taught how to communicate with our partner when things get challenging. So finding ways to communicate about everything, but especially sexual desires, and finding ways that feel safe for both people is really, really important too, for keeping the sex drive up in long-term relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was reading a book recently. It's called Sublime Union, and it's actually like a tantra book guided by Mary Magdalene, channeled book. And one of the very first practices, so simple, is just being with your partner and taking turns sharing authentically with each other. And the practice is basically, there's something I haven't told you, and you just see what comes up. So first person will go and share, and then when they feel complete, the other person will just say, is there anything else? Anything else? And then when they feel complete, they get to just say thank you or respond, and then they switch roles. And she shared in the book too, just that like it's an immediate like turn on, after doing that practice. It's just like there's so much loving energy of just feeling safe and feeling turned on. It's kind of a form of foreplay in a way.
It is. I mean, even just you saying those words, like, I feel my body open as you're saying the practice. I'm like, oh, yes. And I'm like picturing my partner like, oh, yes. It's just to feel safe expressing those things that maybe weren't safe at one point. To feel your partner holding space for that. And like, it's so heart opening. It's so yoni opening, so penis opening. It's just like, yes, I can be me. I can be safe here. It's okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, another thing I wanted to ask you about is the cycles and the different times of the month. And actually, a question that came up before that I forgot to ask was times of the month that might be good to do some of these practices, like with the yoni one or the egg. I'd love to hear that. But also just hormones and cycle syncing, and just anything you want to share. Particularly for me, like, I'm curious about that premenstrual week and the emotions and the, stuff that comes up that week. Do you want to speak to that?
Oh my gosh, where do I even start? There's so much there. So first of all, every woman is going to be a little bit different in her cycle. I personally find my cervix and my turn on most accessible when I'm in the ovulatory phase. Our cervix is actually lower and our hormones are higher, and we're naturally most of us are naturally just more sexual. Like our bodies are like, yeah, time for a baby. So we're able to really access that sexual turn on, and physically we're actually able to access the cervix more. So it all just is kind of working together. So I always have a ritual of working with my cervix in that ovulatory phase. I have, the past couple years, I really started struggling with PMS and feeling really, really emotional during the luteal phase, which is premenstrual. And so I started cycle syncing and really tuning in with, like, it's almost like as women, our hormones are changing so much in each phase of our cycle. We're almost like different versions of ourselves from week to week. I don't know if you can relate to that, but like, I really like thinking of it as seasons. You know, our winter time is when we're bleeding. Springtime is the follicular phase after bleeding. Summertime is ovulatory, and fall is luteal, PMS. And just the sort of emotions that go on in each of those cycles. Like, okay, I notice I'm PMSing and I'm feeling all of a sudden like I don't want to socialize. I don't want to talk to anyone. I just kind of want to cry and curl up in a ball. And then like, but what do I do about that? Am I normal? Am I okay? And then like, as soon as like you start bleeding and you're ovulating, I'm like, I'm the queen of everything. I can do anything and more. You're creative. You're giving birth to new ideas. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm okay. And then it changes the next week. So I have really, really had to learn how to work with my cycle and with all of the hormones and changes and emotions that go with each phase. And I created this program for myself, but now I've released it. I'm selling it now on my website, but I've created a program with rituals that actually use the yoni egg to help balance what our emotions and what our hormones are going through each week, because we can feel really out of control with it. So I have something like for that luteal phase, the PMS phase, I have certain rituals that are going to help cope with and hold yourself through those emotions, and even help to transmute the emotions and raise your frequency when you're going through that time. It's like a whole ritual to hold yourself and to nurture yourself through what we're going through. I think that this is another place that I felt shame around, is PMS and like how much I'm changing each week. And the more I started talking about that, the more I started realizing, oh my God, I am not crazy. I'm not bipolar. I'm just a woman. We're all going through this, and it's time to start talking about it. It's time to start really supporting each other through this, because it's not easy. We're changing our brain chemistry is changing so much every week. And, you know, we need to seek support where we can when we need it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I so relate. When I really started tuning into the cycle tracking and like looking at what day I was on, it was such a noticeable shift of like, I know exactly when the ovulation is complete. And like, there's this very, emotional, physical kind of experience of like, okay, I'm in this new phase now. I was listening to another podcast where she was using some words like harvest was the ovulation time, and I think she used the word decay was actually like the luteal phase, and then rebirth was maybe through the moon time, but it's just like this cycle that we go through of like growth, rebirth, and growth, and harvest and decay, and kind of that feeling of just wanting to go be alone. Like I'm in the luteal phase at this moment, and like just
thank you for being here. I know that's hard.
I totally like canceled plans this week.
Good.
It's like it was funny because my partner was going away, and I was imagining like, oh, I'm going to want to see lots of people and make sure I have lots of connection, and I've just wanted to be alone.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. I'm proud of you for doing that and just honoring that. Like, that's what, that's why I like to create rituals around each different phase, because that's what you truly need. You need to just be alone and hibernate and just be with yourself right now, and creating a ritual out of that and not making it wrong, making it right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for speaking to that. I think it's definitely something that more women are needing to hear, and just, to realize we're not crazy, and just to know. Also, to not make too much of a story around, let's say you're feeling sad or angry. If you know, like, oh, this is that 1 week of the month where this is going to come up a lot more, then it's like you don't need to get so attached to the things that are happening and creating all this story, and just be like, this is impermanent. This is going to pass. And actually, there are some gifts in this, and some action that wants to be taken, or something that wants to be shed or let go of. And that time is actually a lot of wisdom comes through. And think of if we weren't shedding at some point, there would be this kind of constant accumulation, and that's not healthy either.
Yeah. When we can start to really see it as a gift, it changes everything. And like you said, not creating these big stories of, oh, why I'm feeling this way, or what's wrong, why, just the why, taking the why out of it, and it just is. And where is the gift?
Yes.
Yeah, it's life-changing, really.
Is there anything you can share with us just around stepping into more confidence around sexuality and sensuality?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, because I had zero confidence in myself and my body and my sexuality. And the thing that really changed it all for me was like self-touch and dancing in front of the mirror. I don't know if that sounds crazy, but that changed my life. Putting on some sexy music and just like seducing yourself in front of the mirror and seeing, oh my God, this is my body. I get to move like this. I get to touch my skin. This is the way my skin feels. This is the way my breasts feel. This is the way my hair feels. And finding, like, seducing yourself with that, with music and ritual, and making it, like a self-love ceremony to really maybe see yourself for the first time in that light.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is, not something we're really taught growing up.
No.
So that's a huge radical act to experience that with yourself.
Yeah, and it can feel scary or it's something that I teach in the programs. And I think that a lot of women, the first time they do it, like this sacred stripper dance in front of the mirror, I think they're like, oh, this is weird. It's not right to look at myself in the mirror. I'm being, I shouldn't look at myself like that. I shouldn't love myself. I shouldn't see myself as beautiful.
Conceited.
Maybe. Yes, that's the word I'm looking for. But it's so much more than that. It is so healing. And, you know, by the time I finish the courses I teach, that is everyone's favorite part of the course, is seducing themselves in front of the mirror. There's so much healing in it. So.
Wow. Well, I know in just coming out with this business, probably a lot of fears that were faced, but anything in particular you want to share, just maybe in the last year, of like a big fear that you've overcome and how you did it, and any wisdom you have to share on that for anyone else who might have a similar fear?
Yes, so many. I feel like, oh my gosh, 2019 was like the year of fear, the year of overcoming fears. Well, first of all, coming out of the closet with my business, and letting my family see that, and my friends, and, you know, just really stepping into this role of the teacher and coach that I am. And I taught a lot of in-person workshops last year on pleasure activation, self-love, yoni activation, and public speaking. Oh my God, so scary for me. I am naturally a very introverted person. So getting in front of an audience and speaking is like, you know, I think I'm going to die every time, basically. And I think the biggest fear for me was the one that I taught a workshop at Burning Man, a pleasure activation workshop at Burning Man. And I knew people that were going to be there, and that was intimidating. They weren't strangers. And right when everyone walked in, they just took their tops off. I didn't ask them to or anything. It was just like, here we are, women together. And like, that was so comforting. Like, okay, I'm going to be okay. We're all topless. But yeah, the wisdom I can share on that is, there is the other side of that fear is the absolute best feeling ever. Like, I have one of my friends who says something like, vulnerability is her favorite drug. Like, that kind of high that you get after you do something really scary or really vulnerable. Feeling that pride in yourself, feeling like that you've overcome something that is really scary, I think is one of the biggest places growth can come from as humans. And I guess, if, you know, a lot of it has been really scary for me to share because of my past and because of my upbringing, but I know that this message is meant to be heard. And so it's worth all of the scary stuff. It's worth getting out of my comfort zone. It's worth thinking I'm going to fall over and die before I speak every time. Because if it can help anyone, then it's worth it. So if anyone's going through something like that, it's just, you know that your message is special and that it's needed.
Yeah. And when we could really connect to the passion behind it and knowing that this is, going to be of service. Yeah. It's been the same for me, just knowing that there is something bigger than our fear.
Yes. Yes.
We can be in devotion to that.
Yes. Absolutely. Bigger than our fear. It's a great way to put it.
Do you have any closing words for people that are listening before I end with a closing prayer?
Yeah. The first thing that came to me as you said that was actually what I opened with, is that if you are feeling broken or numb, or, you know, having trouble having an orgasm or feeling pleasure, or if you're going through any of these things, PMS, just know that you are normal and it's okay and you're not broken. And there is, you know, it's worth doing the work to overcome these things. And there's so much pleasure and beauty and sacredness on the other side. And is it okay if I share about my program?
Yes, please.
Okay. Yeah, I just released my Yoni Moon program, and it's a cycle syncing Yoni egg program. So you get multiple rituals and Yoni egg practices for each cycle of your menstrual or moon phase. So you get a few for the luteal phase, for the ovulatory, follicular, and menstruation phase. And these are all rituals to help activate pleasure internally, to help clear sexual blocks and wounds, and to help create a sacred and beautiful relationship with your blood and with your hormones and just with your entire cycle. So.
And when is that happening, or how can people find that?
So it's actually a self-paced program. We have a Facebook group that I can answer any questions and give live support if ever needed, but it's a self-paced program. So you can have access to it right away, wherever you're at in your moon cycle. You can start right there. And
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes. And we'll include links in the show notes. Anything else of where people just can find you, or where you like to connect with people?
Yes, my Instagram is Loving Into Alignment, and my website is alexa.podia.com. And I made a special discount code for anyone who listens to this podcast. It is Rising Women Leaders, and it's for 20% off of any of my programs.
Oh, thank you. We'll be sure to include that. Beautiful.
Awesome.
Well, let's just take a moment to just breathe this all in and to connect back with our sacral chakra, that portal, that power spot within us of just worthiness and pleasure and opening. Just inviting all of the sisters listening here today to just bring any gems, anything that resonated with you into your heart, into your womb. Remembering how worthy you are of being connected to these deep, true, feminine parts of yourself. And also, if there's anything within you that's wishing to be birthed or born or spoken, just trusting that the message that you have inside of you is something that's needed, that's coming to you for a reason. So I'll bring my hands to my heart just with much gratitude for Alexxa for sharing her wisdom here with us today. Thank you, sister. And to everyone listening as well, sending you off with lots of love. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thanks so much for taking the time to listen to our show today. We would love to hear what you think. Take a moment to hop on over to iTunes and leave us a review. We'd be so grateful to receive it. Until next time, namaste.